So now we are at the part of the moving forward series. We're going to talk about teams that got eliminated in the playoffs. And I said before that I was going to go in order in terms of team being eliminated from the playoffs before we get into the reigning champion of MLS Cup, that is NYCFC. And in some way, it is still true where I'm going to talk about teams that got eliminated in the first round first, the second round, and then so forth and so forth. But where I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit is that I'm going to not go in a particular order in terms of team eliminated in a specific round. So what that means is that to talk about these four teams that got eliminated in the first round, I'm actually not going to go in terms of the particular order. Technically, I should talk about the Red Bulls first because they were the first team to be eliminated, but I decided to just kind of go over random order. And I started with Atlanta United today as the first of four teams that got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. Of course, they got eliminated of what would be the team that win the whole thing, that is NYCFC. But overall, in terms of this season for Atlanta, man, it has been a turbulent season for this team. I mean, it almost felt like it was a roller coaster ride. If you're an Atlanta United fans, follow this team with the way that there was so much hype and so much expectation and hope that this team was going to be an MLS Cup contender once again in the East when Gabriel Heinze was announced. And they had a relatively good run in the CONCACAF Champions League before getting knocked out by fellow MLS team, the Philadelphia Union, and that's when it kind of went downhill for Gabriel Heinze. Got fired. Rob Valentino come in, stabilize the ship a little bit, and then of course Gonzalo Pineda coming in from the Seattle Sounders really get this team to an upward projectile, and then they kind of stalled a little bit as the season comes to an end, and then of course they suffer a disappointing first round and kind of just continue the stereotype of Atlanta sports of an Atlanta sports team suffer an early playoff exit, even though there's so much hope that they could definitely go far in the playoffs. But overall, in terms of this season, they finished with a 13-12-9 record and finished with 51 points. They only scored 45 goals this season, and again, for an Atlanta United team with how these last couple years has been, this is definitely a far cry in terms of the Tata Martino team, where this is always considered the highest goal scoring team and the most fun team to watch. I mean, that kind of really changed when Frank de Boer was coming into this team where, I always felt that when Frank de Boer was managing this Atlanta United team before his downfall in the MLS's back tournament, it wasn't that bad. I mean, yes, I know the style of soccer was not good, and I know Atlanta United fans were not happy about it, but I think maybe Atlanta fans might have to kind of come to reality that, as much as it's great to see fun soccer, that's not always going to be the case. And at least with Frank de Boer, they were definitely getting reserved, and under Gabriel Heinze, it seems like they were kind of playing almost that same brand of soccer, and were still kind of struggle in terms of scoring goal. But nevertheless, they still finished with a respectable 45 goals, and they at least weren't the team that scored the least amount of goals that made it to the playoffs. That honor, of course, belongs to the New York Red Bulls. But they did give up some of the least goals in the league with 37 goals. We know they had a rock-solid defense with a goal differential of +8. They finished 5th in the Eastern Conference, and as I mentioned, they got knocked out in the first round of what would be the reigning champion of MLS Cup, that is NYCFC. Top goal scorer for this team, unsurprisingly, Joseph Martinez, coming back after suffering a torn ACL injury last season, scored 12 goals this year, and he really definitely looked like the old Joseph Martinez as the year goes along. Then you got Marcelino Moreno, certainly had a breakout year with 9 goals, followed by another guy that finally had a breakout year, that is Ezequiel Barco with 7 goals. Then you got Luis Araujo with 4 goals, and then Anton Walkes rounds up the top 5. And technically, I probably shouldn't put Anton Walkes in here because he's no longer a Atlanta United player after being selected in the expansion draft by Charlotte FC. Top assist leader, Ezequiel Barco leads the team with 8 assists, followed by Brooks Landon with 6 assists. I thought, during the time when Atlanta was really struggling and it was kind of almost the rock bottom part of the season for this team, Brooks Landon was kind of one of the bright spot of this team. Like, he is always a hard-working player, and while there's times that he doesn't show at that quality of being a guy that can deliver the ball into the box very well, he still is a very hard-working player and can call havoc on the flank. But yeah, he finished with 6 assists this season, followed by Marcelino Moreno with 5 assists, Luis Araujo with 4 assists, and Alan Franco, defender, actually ends up on the top assist leader chart with 4 assists to round up the top 5 assist leader for this Atlanta United team. So what went right for this Atlanta United team after a turbulent year? Well, as I mentioned, the things definitely got much better under Gonzalo Pineda, but a lot of people need to also give credit to Rob Valentino. I mean, as I mentioned, Valentino really stabilized of what was just kind of a sinking ship that Atlanta United was going under the last couple of games under Gabriel Heinze, and then that really kind of sets up for Gonzalo Pineda to come in. Don't really have to kind of work as a miracle worker to really get this team to a turnaround, but also just kind of continue the upward projectile that Valentino, of course, sets up. So, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people, of course, give Pineda a lot of credit, but I think the real credit has to go with Valentino really kind of stabilize the ship, because it's one thing to basically stabilize the ship, but it's another to trying to do it when things are going terribly wrong with this team, and I thought he really did a good job in terms of really stop the bleeding and stop the fact that it looked like it's going to be another lost season for this Atlanta United team. And then, as I mentioned before, Barco finally had a breakout season. I mean, I know the numbers doesn't say it, but this was an incredible season for Ezequiel Barco that I'm assuming he's going to be sold off this off season. I mean, I know there hasn't been a lot of rumors about him getting some big money move off to Europe, but I'm assuming it has to happen, especially we'll talk about later of them bringing another DP player, and that they're already kind of maxed out in terms of the DP spot, and that they have to free up a DP spot in terms of bringing one of their big signing that they're going to have this off season. And it seems like Barco most likely is going to be that player, though I'll kind of explain a little bit once we get to the moving forward part of this episode. And then, of course, the last thing went right for this Atlanta team, as I mentioned. The old Joseph started to kind of come back, and really, I mean, I knew this was going to happen with the way that, yes, I know early in the season Joseph Martinez was really struggling, but this is a guy that hasn't played in over a year. And even though I know some said he was kind of ahead of schedule in terms of getting back to match fitness, when you haven't played in over a year, that is always going to be tough to trying to get yourself back to match fitness. Never mind in terms of looking like your old self. And I really thought as the season goes on, you can start to see that this looks like it's the Joseph Martinez that we know, a guy that brings a lot of fear to every defense in the league in terms of his goal scoring ability. And I won't be surprised next year he's going to get back to being that 15 plus or even 20 plus goal scorer, and potentially trying to hunt down to win the Golden Boot once again. So what went wrong for this Atlanta team? Well, as I said, the Gabriel Heinze fiasco was one of the big things that kind of went wrong for this Atlanta United team. I mean, again, it started so well for Gabriel Heinze. Well, I wouldn't say it started all well. It was kind of a little bit mediocre, but it just fell off a cliff in the middle of the season. And then, of course, we heard about the whole thing that it's not just on the field that it was an issue that Atlanta United fans were unhappy about Gabriel Heinze, but then they find out the field situation and the training ground situation of how Gabriel Heinze wasn't giving a lot of these players rest. There was also the meme talk about how they weren't even allow his player to drink water, or at least consume limited water. I mean, it was just an absolute disaster. I mean, it was so it's bad when even the CBA started to kind of investigate on this situation. And yeah, I mean, it was just such a disaster time for this team, and really that was during the time where I wouldn't blame any Atlanta United fans would give up this season and just think that, well, I guess we'll see you next season, with the way that looks like this turns out to be a huge failure, and we'll just kind of move on and hope that maybe next year this team will get right. And also, not to mention, I think this also really kind of put a lot of heat in terms of some of the front office of this Atlanta United team. I mean, I talked about how Atlanta United have always had one of the best front office in the league. I mean, guys like Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra kind of considered some of the best board front office people in the league. But Bocanegra, he was under a ton of fire during the whole Gabriel Heinze situation, and that there was even some Atlanta United fans gone as far as demanding him to be fired to alongside with Gabriel Heinze. So yeah, I mean, it was really truly a dark time for this team. But the other thing that kind of went wrong for this team, as I mentioned, they still had trouble in terms of scoring goals, and this is kind of improved as Pineda was in charge of this team, but you also start in the latter part of the season. They still had problem in terms of goal scoring, and it's not because of lack of trying, but it's because they just could not put the game away, and that also led to them dropping way too many points in late game situation because they could see goals late. I mean, there's that old saying: if you don't find that killer second goal, or if you don't kill off your opponent, it's going to come back to haunt you, and it came back to haunt this Atlanta United team time and time again in the latter part of the season. I mean, just think if they would have not able to just kind of maybe dig around and just kind of get that second goal and get all 3 points in some of those games that they of course draw points because of late goal. This team would have actually had a shot to not only at least host one playoff game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but maybe host multiple game too. I mean, those kind of drop points that they suffer at home and away because they weren't able to kill the game off really hurt this team chances of having a home game in the playoffs, and hence that's kind of one of the reasons why it was all they kind of face a challenging first game against NYCFC on the road and against a team that they have never won on the road when the game is played at Yankee Stadium. So moving forward for this Atlanta United team, well, the first thing for them is that we know that they're going to be sellers this offseason and that they definitely have some big asset to sell to clubs in Europe. I mean, we talked about Ezekiel Barco and how, again, it's kind of surprised that there's not a lot of offer from Europe or even in South America that they are looking to trying to get him, considering the fact that I thought, when you have guys like Thiago, the guy that they're going to bring him in this season, they need to free up a DP spot. I mean, if Barco isn't going to go, maybe Marcelino Moreno might be the one to go, though I have heard that Marcelino Moreno, his contract might be bought down so that Amanja can basically take that DP spot. But either way, I'm kind of shocked the fact that there's been a lack of for Barco. Consider this was a guy that even when he was not doing well and really doing his first two seasons where it seems like he seems to be a huge bust for Atlanta United, there was still some offer of teams from Europe potentially getting him, and these weren't just any offer. These were big offer with big sum of money that Atlanta, I'm surprised they didn't decide to accept. And now the fact that there's really no offer, even though he just came off an incredible year, it's kind of a little bit ironic in some way, but kind of also shocking how that, of course, turns out. But also, besides Ezekiel Barco, they also have some big asset player, especially in the defensive area. There's been talk about George Bello, of him linking with a couple of Premier League team and Bundesliga team. Then you got Miles Robinson linking with a lot of team in Europe. I mean, I'm assuming most likely they're probably going to keep one of those two players. I doubt Atlanta is going to sell off both of these players this offseason, especially the fact that their backline has really been kind of decimated with other teams decided to kind of sign some of the backline depth that they had. I mean, one of their most important backline pieces, Anton Walks, he moved on to Charlotte FC through the expansion draft. And then, he might not be a guy that regular start for this Atlanta United team anymore, but, Franco Escobar, he move on to, I believe, LAFC was the team that picked him up. Yeah, so their backline all of a sudden started to feel a little bit thin, and if they do sell two of their best defender this off season, it's great for them to get some good asset, but now you have the whole problem of how you're going to replace him. So I think one of those two players could potentially go, and there could be a case where none of them actually go. Maybe Atlanta would actually just try to hold them on, knowing the fact that they're kind of a little bit shorthanded in terms of the back line, and maybe this is not the time for them to sell off those assets. And then, of course, the second moving forward is that, I kind of mentioned this before, which DP player will leave in order to accommodate Amand coming into this team. So from what I heard about the Thiago Amand saga, it seems like that is being settled. I mean, I've heard so many crazy rumors that has happened throughout his time to sign with Atlanta and how it was just so difficult to do, but it seems like it is now confirmed that he is going to be joining this team in February. But that also means that they need to sign him to a DP contract. And right now, as I said, they're kind of facing the same situation that the LA Galaxy faced a couple of years ago. Remember how they were locked up with all three DP and they don't have room to basically put Christian Pavone another DP, and we know that, I know the league kind of fit the Galaxy in terms of signing a Ghost Force DP, but I'm pretty sure the league is trying not to do that again. Like, I know if they're gonna try to do it again, even though I know Atlanta has always been kind of considered the darlings of the league. Fans are not gonna be happy that if it's going to happen again. So again, they're gonna have to free up a DP spot, and this of course goes back to what I said. Either they decided to sell Barco off to Europe to free up that DP spot, or potentially either sell off Marcelino Moreno or buy him down his DP contract and basically use that to accommodate Thiago Amanda coming into this team. And then last thing moving forward for this Atlanta United team is goalkeeping and defensive signing is expected this offseason. Again, the back line with them losing a couple of players, I'm assuming that they're going to try to find ways to replace them. But the position that I think is a much need for this Atlanta United team is goalkeeping, because besides Brad Guzan, there really isn't a good backup goalkeeper option for this Atlanta United team. I mean, they sold off their backup goalkeeper Alan Kahn to FC Cincinnati, and then one of their hero from the CONCACAF Champions League, Rocco Rios Novo. He's now going back to Argentina after spending on loan with Atlanta United. I'm kind of surprised they decided not to kind of re-sign or sign him on a permanent deal or extend the loan, because I thought during his time with Atlanta United, especially in the CONCACAF Champions League, he looked like a really decent goalkeeper and one that has a lot of potential to take over the spot that Brad Guzan potentially is not going to be there in a couple of years. But again, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to do. I mean, at least I think the good news for Atlanta is that they don't really need to worry about signing a backup goalkeeper or show some real desperation, because of the way that there's always some decent backup goalkeeper in the league. But they know that they're going to have to do so, because what if Brad Guzan suffer an injury, and then now you have not a lot of option in terms of the goalkeeping spot. I believe the only other option that they have is a 17-year-old homegrown goalkeeper, and I don't think bringing a 17-year-old homegrown goalkeeper into to do the deep end of an MLS game is going to be look very well for this Atlanta United team. So yeah, again, I think they're gonna have to find a backup goalkeeper and also make some reinforcement in the defense after losing a couple of key pieces there. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for my moving forward series of Atlanta United. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and if you're an Atlanta United fan, what do you think went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.